going to go ahead and learn how to make a bezel setting for this synthetic opal using a plain sterling silver bezel, and we'll end up setting it on a plain sterling silver 18-gauge sheet metal. Bezel comes in different forms. There's decorated bezel, and it also comes, you have a choice of using the sterling silver or the brass bezel, but we're going to go ahead and use sterling for today. You're going to want to have this equation ready to go, because one of the easiest ways to deal with bezel is take the circumference, find the circumference by multiplying pi times the diameter of the stone. In order to measure the diameter of the stone, you're going to use a slide rule. It's easier to set a round stone. You're going to measure the bottom mark as it relates to the millimeter scale on the middle right here. So you're going to ignore the inches on the top. So this particular stone is a 6 millimeter. So once I know what my diameter of my stone is, I'm going to multiply that by pi, and I'm going to measure that out. And you can use a regular ruler, or you can use one of those ring rulers that we use to figure out how long the rings are, the bracelet gauges right here. So we're going to flip it to the millimeter side. And pi times 6 millimeters, so we got 3.14 times 6. You can old school it, or you can pull out your phone and do that. So we've got 18.84 is the circumference, and that's what would wrap to make the exact shape of the stone. But we also want to make it a little bigger, and we want to accommodate for the thickness of this bezel. This bezel is a very thin gauge, so all we need to do is add 1 millimeter for the thickness of the metal. So in order to figure out the size that I want, I'm going to cut as close as possible a 19.84 length of bezel. So I'm going to go ahead and take my piece right here. A thin Sharpie marker for measuring that is better than a thick one. You always want to use your tin snips to go ahead and make sure that this is a perpendicular cut. Remember, you're never closing your hand around that. And you're going to come in and measure your 19.84. You're better off erring on the side of a little bit too long rather than a little bit too short. If it is a little bit too short, you can go ahead and forge it after you solder it together to make it larger. So I'm going to use the tin snips again to go ahead and cut this. And I have the length I need when those two are soldered together to fit that into the bezel. Easiest way to do this is to just kind of take your fingers. You're welcome to use some of the pliers, and you're not worried about the shape of it. All you're going to do is get these two ends to meet perfectly. You can use some chain pliers. You can use just your hands. If you grab one of the bezel mandrels, sometimes you get too caught up in making sure it's round. Don't worry about that. You've already used the math, trust your math, to make sure that these two fit flush together.